So I wanted to take today's video to speak about Newcastle United. I spoke a lot about Spurs and Liverpool over the weekend and the VR controversies. I think it's taken a lot of the attention away from the fact that Newcastle got another brilliant win against Burnley. Now, I think a lot of people have written off Newcastle because they lost, 3 games in a row, Brighton, Liverpool, Man City, and people were just like, yeah, Newcastle completely were just written off by a lot of mainstream media, a lot of pundits, a lot of people haven't really been taking this Newcastle side particularly seriously. I've been saying for a while, I think the signings they're doing is good. I think the players they've got is good. I think depending on injuries and depth, I think that Newcastle are going to have a very good season. 8-0 win. Then they beat Man City. Then they beat Burnley. And I guess that the VR controversy has probably maybe overshadowed that. But I don't think enough people are talking about Newcastle. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Newcastle United. But there's actually 3 players that I kind of want to focus on when speaking about Newcastle United. Then we will talk a little bit about the PSG game coming up. And the 3 players I want to focus on are obviously, what do you call him? Forgot his name. Anthony Gordon, player of the month. That's because I saw Harvey Barnes on the side of my screen. I was like, that's not Harvey Barnes. I want to speak about Anthony Gordon, how he looks like a different player. I want to speak about Kieran Trippier, who's been absolutely fantastic this season. I want to talk about Sean Longstaff, who's having one of the most underrated seasons ever, sort of putting Tonali on the bench. Sean Longstaff's a player that I laughed at. With the state of Man United's midfield, I'm not laughing at Sean Longstaff now. Now, I laughed at him like 2 years ago when he was linked to Man United, but I take him at Man United now. I tell you that right now. And then obviously the final player I want to talk about is Bruno Guimaraes, a player that we know is fantastic, but a player that I think was probably standout performer versus Burnley. Now, what I want to talk about is Newcastle. So they beat Brentford, then a brilliant draw 0-0 to Milan, then obviously 8-0 win over Sheffield United. But we're going to talk about the City game, and then we're going to talk about the Burnley game, and then we're going to talk about the PSG game coming up, which is at home, and I fancy Newcastle to win that, believe it or not. So let's talk about this game here. Now, I think versus City, Newcastle, basically, I think they rotated 9 players, was it? Basically, the Newcastle B team beat City's. I guess it was City's B team as well, but City still had a Kanji, Gvardiol, and Nathan Ake, who start for them a lot. They still had Grealish, who's been pretty poor, Alvarez, and Kovacic. Yes, Bob doesn't play for them. Rico Lewis does actually play for the first team a fair bit, and Calvin Phillips isn't great. But if you actually look at it, Newcastle fielded a weaker team than Man City did, and Newcastle deservedly got a result versus Manchester City. Obviously, Manchester City had more possession and 10 shots, but Newcastle obviously 4 shots on target here, and both teams created 2 big chances each, but Newcastle were just more clinical as well. Now, in that game, I want to talk about Lascelles, who was really impressive, a player that's been kind of written off. He was really, really impressive. Lewis Miley's probably, I don't think he was a standout player, but I think he was really good in pre-season. I think there's got a big future here as well. But I want to talk about the fact that Newcastle as a unit were very impressive in that game, and they got a result versus Man City. Carabao Cup or not, B team or not, the fact that their B team, their rotation option, got a result against Man City, knocking Man City out the Carabao Cup, which Man City normally the Kings are, you've got to give them some. I also thought the Livramento was really, really promising in that. But what I want to talk about is obviously the Burnley game and more so certain players. Kieran Trippier, Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, those players have been fantastic. Fabian Schär has also been absolutely fantastic. So I know Botman is injured and Botman's going to be a big miss, but he should be back after the international break. I want to talk about a few players. Now, first of all, I want to talk about Bruno Guimaraes here, and I want to get his game numbers up versus Burnley because he was incredible. And look, I was obviously watching mostly the Man United game at the time, but it was so awful that I had the Newcastle game on the other screen. But Bruno Guimaraes stood out. 34 passes, 5 key passes, and it was the 5 key passes. Basically, every kind of opportunity it felt like came through Guimaraes. I think he played a ball through to Isaac in the first half, must have been the 30th minute or something, which was quite good. There was loads of good things that Bruno Guimaraes did. He created a lot of chances, and five key passes Guimaraes played as well. Obviously, 3 out of 5 long balls, put in a good cross, created 1 big chance as well. I thought he was very good in terms of creativity, but also put in a shift at 5 tackles there. And I actually think it was between him and Trippier for man of the match that game. And look, everyone knows how good Bruno Guimaraes is. Everyone talks about Bruno Guimaraes. Created 5 chances, had the most successful ball recoveries in 12, registered more interceptions than anyone else in 2, most tackles in 5. Bruno Guimaraes was impressive. But also, I want to talk about Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier registered 73 successful passes out of 89. He attained the ball 14 out of 25 times, won so many fouls, and was fouled more than any other player versus Burnley. Kieran Trippier was also fantastic in that game. And I think right now everyone knows what Bruno Guimaraes is like. He's one of the best midfielders out there. But no one's been speaking about Sean Longstaff. Like, I used to laugh at the Longstaffs. I thought, for bloody hell, Matty Longstaff used to always score against Man United. And we were linked when we had Ollie as manager to the Longstaffs. And I used to go, not the Longstaffs. And I used to laugh at them. But they've been really good. Sean Longstaff has been really impressive. Sean Longstaff is underrated probably by Newcastle fans and rival fans. And this season, he's got Tonali on the bench right now. Look, I think Tonali's great. I think Tonali will become great. And I think we saw glimpses versus Villa. I think, we just want to see a little bit more from Tonali, I think. But you have to give Sean Longstaff credit for that. The way he's been playing week in, week out, like he's been consistently good as well. It's not that he's just had one good performance, like he's been consistently good as well. And I think he's, again, very underrated by the Newcastle fan base. Works hard on the ball, off the ball, has been pretty tidy, hasn't really put a foot wrong as well. And I have to say, you've got to give credit to Sean Longstaff there. But a player that I want to talk about is Kieran Trippier, who's probably been the best right back in the league so far this season. He was absolutely incredible. Again, we look at his game numbers here. Obviously 0.62 expected assists, got an assist, 4 tackles, 8 out of 11 ground duels won, 9 out of 12 duels won in total, managed to win 4 fouls, 122 touches, was heavily involved in the game, 5 key passes, 2 big chances created. And when I say, Newcastle could have beat Burnley 3 or 4-0, I'm not lying. The amount of chances they created here, look, Newcastle had an XG of 3.19. To put that into context, when Liverpool beat Man United 7-0, which I don't like to talk about much, their XG was like 2. Liverpool's XG is a lot higher, not Liverpool's. Newcastle's XG when they won 2-0 is a much, much higher than Liverpool's XG when they won 7-0. You've got to look at that 3.19 XG, and they've got 2 goals from that. Liverpool got 7 from about 2 XG against us, unfortunately. 20 shots, 8 on target, 5 of those. But this is what I mean, 6 big chances. 6 big chances, you're thinking 6-0. You've got to look at it like that. They beat Sheffield United 8-0. They could have basically won this game 6-0. Burnley could have had a goal, to be fair to them, 6-1. But they beat Villa really heavily at the start of the season. They beat Man City. They got a 0-0 against AC Milan in the Carabao Cup. But they actually created 6 big chances here. And I think because they lost those opening games of the season, people have kind of been writing Newcastle off. But no team had a harder start to the season than Newcastle United. They had to play Liverpool and City and Brighton, and they're on 12 points. And, literally, if they win their next game, they're 4 points off the top 4. They'll easily get back into the top 4 because they've got a much better fixture list coming ahead. But they absolutely dominated Burnley, and they absolutely dominated I wouldn't say they dominated Man City, but they got a deserved win versus Man City. And Anthony Gordon's been absolutely fantastic for Newcastle so far this season. Sean Longstaff's been brilliant. Bruno Guimaraes was excellent in the Burnley game, and Kieran Trippier has been having a stellar season. And those were the sort of 4 stand-up players I wanted to talk about. And what I wanted to talk about is why I feel like no one's really taking Newcastle seriously. I mean, I've done videos talking about how good Spurs have been, how good Arsenal have been. I think Liverpool really impressed me, unfortunately. Man City. I mean, those 4 teams have been super impressive. And I think this is the first time in a long time where there's a Premier League season where there's been 5 really good big teams. You could even say Villa was 6. There's been, there's always this. I feel like at the start of the season, Arsenal fans are disappointed, or Chelsea fans are disappointed, and United fans are disappointed, and it seems to just be City and Liverpool. In the past, it seemed to just be City and Liverpool, and everyone was left behind. But at the moment, obviously, I think City are at their own level, but they're missing Rodri, so they're going to drop off. But at the moment, I feel like it's not just City and Liverpool, it's Newcastle, it's Arsenal, it's Spurs, we're all having a good start to the season. And I think everyone's focusing on Ange, everyone's focusing on Arteta, Pep, Klopp, that people aren't really giving Newcastle the attention they deserve. They lost 3 games in a row. They kind of got written off by the media. But I think if you actually watch Newcastle and how they've been and how they've responded to those 3 losses in a row, I think they've been absolutely incredible. I've been really, really impressed with Newcastle. And I think they will have a really good season depending on injuries. I think injuries is going to make the difference. Obviously, I know Sven Botman is out. Joe Linton is out. And unfortunately, they've suffered a big injury to Harvey Barnes. But I believe Sven Botman and Joe Linton will be back in like 2 weeks. They're really important players. I mean, Almiron did score a screamer. I have a few question marks over Almiron myself. He's been a bit of a purple patch player, but he can do the job. I think long term Newcastle will need another centre back. I think long term they'll probably need a DM to get the best out of Guimaraes and Tonali and Longstaff. They'd need DM, and in long term I think they would need a right winger. I think they're the three positions Newcastle need to address if they want to close the gap on City. But I think, the fact that they were all over Burnley, the fact that they absolutely battered Sheffield United, and look, yes, Sheffield United are absolutely rubbish. There's no doubt about that. But to beat them 8-0, that, it doesn't matter how bad you are, to win 8-0. No, how many times have Man City played championship sides in the Carabao Cup and won 3-0? You'd expect that, but to 8-0, that's special. So I think, Newcastle deserve a lot more attention and need to be spoken about a bit more in that Spurs-Arsenal bracket. Yes, they lost 3 games in a row, but they've brought 4 or 5 players that have been really impressive. No one's speaking about Longstaff. No one is speaking about Longstaff. No one's, only Newcastle fans are speaking about Gordon, but they deserve a bit of credit. And I think people like to look at the traditional big six. So I'm a Man United fan. Everyone loves to speak about Manchester United when things are going bad and things are going well. But I think the Newcastle, people just don't give it enough attention. And I think I don't sleep on them. That's what my point is. Anyway, smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. I will be doing a review to some of the Champions League games this week. I will be focusing mostly on United, but I will look at the other games as well.